Hello and welcome to me sitting in my room completing Pokedexes instead of getting a girlfriend. Pokemon made another game just 21 years ago called Ruby and Sapphire, which features more Pokemon and a new region. How fun. Because of this, I have to play through the new generation and see how long and painful it is to complete it. We have 202 Pokemon in the dex, and we have to catch them all. If you've seen my videos for Gen 1 and 2, the rules are exactly the same as there. All games must be from fresh save files, no glitches or cheats, outside resources are allowed, all that. Once again, I have made a guide that I use throughout my playthrough, and if you want to use it too, I have it linked in the description. I'll be playing Pokemon Emerald as it's the definitive version, and also brings me more pain as I have to play through both Ruby and Sapphire as well. Oh, by the way, spoilers, I have to play all three. Anyway, intro speedrun done, let's get right into the game. I started up a new save, named my character, got out of the van because there's no free candy, set the time, missed the only chance of my life so far to see my father, met this sexist dude, and now we can actually pick our Pokemon. As you would expect, you can't pick all the starters, so I chose the correct choice, Mudkip. I go and beat Brendan, go back to the lab after he told me to. Twice. And now we have the Pokedex. The first Pokemon I caught on Route 101 was a Poochyena, who took 2 balls. Then I caught a Wurmple, who took 2 balls. I went up to Route 103 to get Zigzagoon and Wingull, who took 4 balls this time. And now it was time for Route 102, which had Ralts, a 4% encounter, and Seedot, a 1% encounter. I encountered Ralts on my second encounter pretty fast, then it died to a crit. A bit later, I encountered a Lotad, who we also need, then it died to a crit. The next encounter, I got another shot with Ralts, then it died to a crit. I'm noticing a pattern. Eventually, I managed to catch Lotad, Ralts, and Seedot, who nearly died to a crit. I enter Petalburg, learn how to catch a Pokemon because I was struggling before, and move on to Route 104 for Marill and Talo. In Petalburg Woods, I caught Cascoon, Silcoon, Shroomish, then beat Team Aqua before finding a Slakoth. Literally me! I made my way up to Rustboro and beat Roxanne for the Stone Badge. I left the gym and immediately Team Aqua stole some goods, so I need to get them back. On the way, I go to Route 116 to catch Abra, Nincada, Whismur, and eventually Skitty. While on this route, Mudkip evolves into Marshtomp. After beating the Aqua Grunt again and getting the package and letter from Mr. Stone, I kicked Brendan's ass because he used Leer while I was at 3 HP, then went to Dewford. In Dewford, I got an old rod from this guy and fished Magikarp and Tentacool before taking on the gym for the Knuckle Badge. Once that was done, I went to Granite Cave and caught Makuhita, Zubat, Geodude, Aaron, another Aaron because I wanted to use one on my team and the last one had a bad nature, and Sableye. I delivered the letter, then went back to Rustboro to get the EXP share for doing so. Now it was time to make a delivery in Slateport, which I did and beat up eco-terrorists again. Then the leader showed up and talked about his affinity for Wind Waker, but it's 2005 and no one likes Wind Waker because of the art style, so he leaves. I went over to the fan club to get the Soothe Bell, which will be incredibly helpful with friendship evolutions going forward, and by friendship evolutions, I mean just one for this Pokedex. I then went to Route 110. On Route 110, I caught Electrike, well, I'm not saying that, Plusle, Minun, and Oddish before kicking Brendan's ass once again. Upon entering Mauville, I got the Mach Bike, destroyed Wally's hopes and dreams, and beat Watson to get the Dynamo Badge. I went to Route 117 to catch an Illumise, and then came the grind for Volbeat. Volbeat is a 1% encounter on this route, and it's the only route it's available on. I've dealt with 1% encounters in these games before, but this one was on a totally different level. I spent an hour grinding on the same route, going through Pokemon after Pokemon until... Honestly, dude, at this point, the only goal I have is just to catch a Volbeat. You gotta be fucking kidding me! Yeah, thanks, game. I grinded for another hour before giving up. I know some people will be looking at this and saying, does he not know you could just breed Illumise and get a Volbeat 50% of the time? And to that, I say that I do. I know I could do this, but I'm just a stubborn little bitch. Anyway, I fished the Goldeen, got the HMs for Rock Smash and Strength, then moved on to Route 111 where Whismur evolved into Loudred, Route 112 where I caught Numel, and Fiery Path where I caught Torkoal, Machop, Coughing, Slugmanut, and eventually Grimer. Something of note here is that Coughing was the first Pokemon to be put in Box 2. This is huge because in Gen 1 and 2, you had to manually switch boxes, but here they changed it, making everything so much more convenient. After that, it was just Skarmory and Spinda on Route 113 before reaching Fall Arbor Town, in which I moved past Route 114 and Shroomish evolved into Breloom. On Route 114, I caught Swablu, Lombre, Seviper, then went on the hunt for Nuzleaf. Nuzleaf is another 1% encounter, and last time I hunted for one, I spent 2 hours hunting and found a shiny. For time's sake, I set a limit of 30 minutes of hunting before giving up, and it's quite unreasonable to think that we'd find another shiny, so... You gotta be... What the fuck is this? What the fuck is this fucking video game? It's cursed. I'm cursed with luck, but not the luck that I want. I also got Golbat while here, and I decided to leave the hunt there and move on to Meteor Falls, where I caught Solrock, met up with both Team Magma and Team Aqua, and got a Moonstone. I then went up Mount Chimney and beat off Team Magma, don't take that out of context, in way too many attempts. Team Magma wants to expand the landmass because there's too much water, so they're basically IGN. I went down to Jagged Pass to catch Spoink, then made my way over to Lava Ridge Town where I got the egg from this old lady and beat Flannery for the heat badge. Upon leaving the gym, Brendan gave me some goggles. I went back to Fiery Path first to get a Firestone behind some boulders, then I went to the desert to catch Sandshrew, Trapinch, Baltoy, and then I decided to go for the fossils. In Pokemon Emerald, this nifty little place called Mirage Tower houses the fossils. It spawns randomly when you enter the desert, and eventually it spawned for me. Inside, you need the Mach Bike to cross over cracked tiles, and I got to the top only for me to need to leave to get Rock Smash, and then I came back to get the Root Fossil. After that, I caught Cacnea and went over to Rustboro to revive the fossil to get Lileep, then went to Pelleberg and beat Norman for the Balance Badge. With the Balance Badge obtained, I got the HM for Surf, which I used east of Mauville to get the Good Rod from this guy. Using the Good Rod, I fished up Carvana, then fought this guy to level up my Golbat and evolve it into Crobat. In the grass, I caught Lanoon and Manectric, then went to the route up north where I caught Tropius. I found Team Aqua doing some tomfoolery, so I kicked their ass and got a free cast form. These guys are the rivals to Team IGN, so I guess that makes them Team Kotaku? I surfed a bit down to get a Leaf Stone, beat Brendan, then went to Fortree City. I know a lot of you are confused why I skipped a certain fish fucker, but don't worry, I'll come back to that. I go out east to Route 120 and find Steven marveling at the air. I put on some binoculars and catch a Kecleon. Now time for the gym, which took me forever to do. How is this Altaria underleveled and so powerful? Anyway, I got the badge. With that taken care of, I went to Route 120 again and caught Absol, Barboach through fishing, and Mightyena. On Route 121, I find Kotaku back at it again with their wacky antics, but who cares about that? I need to evolve Aaron to Lairon and catch Shuppet and Gloom. On Route 122, I found Wailmer and entered Mount Pyre. Is that a location or a command? Who's Pyre? Anyway, I got the Sea Incense, caught Duskull, then touched some grass for Vulpix and Chimecho upon reaching the summit before beating up Kotaku again. They ran away with the red orb. You idiots, you need the blue orb! Oh, never mind, IGN took the blue orb. Dude, I think the teams are colorblind in this game. Now time for the good old Safari Zone. Never mind, you need a Pokeblock case. But now that I got that, it's time for the good old Safari Zone. This place has a lot of rare Pokemon not found anywhere else, and oh boy is it as painful as it was in Gen 1. You can still throw balls, get closer to make a Pokemon easier to catch but more likely to flee, and now you can throw Pokeblocks to make them more likely to stay. You can also throw Pokeblocks into bins here for specific natures, but I have no blocks, so who cares? Here I caught Doduo, Pikachu, Girafarig, Natu, Wobbuffet, Phanpy, Heracross, Xatu, Rhyhorn, Dodrio, Pinsir, Psyduck, and Golduck. I go back to Jagged Pass to infiltrate the base of some eco-terrorists, and now Groudon is awake. Great. Swablu evolved into Altaria after beating Maxie though, which is cool. I beat Brendan one final time over in Lily Cove, went over to infiltrate another eco-terrorist base, caught Electrode, got a Master Ball, and beat Matt for plot reasons. Outside, I caught Pelipper on my way to Moss Deep City, where I got a Super Rod, and then challenged Tate and Liza. I failed. My team was pretty underleveled, so I spent a bit of time grinding them, and when I was ready to fight, Marshtomp had evolved into Swampert, and Loudred had evolved into Exploud. With this, I beat Tate and Liza, no problem. IGN tries to take Rocket Fuel, so I beat them and get dive from Steven. On Route 127, I fished with the Super Rod to get Sharpedo. I went down to the seafloor cavern and beat Kotaku, and well, now the weather has gone to shit. If I don't hurry to Sootopolis, the world may end, but I think I have enough time to catch some Pokemon, right? On the seafloor of Route 126, I caught Relicanths, then ran out of balls, so I tried going to the mart. Unfortunately, this asshole decides I need to do some story stuff first, but luckily I just refuse and buy balls to get Clamperl, Chinchou, and Clamperl again because we need 2. I fish right next to the guys ending the world to catch Gyarados, then go into the Cave of Ordeals to find Wallace. He says, maybe the guy who flies in the sky might be at the giant tower that goes to the sky, and I leave. On Route 129, I caught your mom, then I went to Sky Pillar to catch Claydol, except the first 3 all exploded, Bayonet, and then finally caught Claydol after 3 more explosions. I sent Rayquaza to Sootopolis for him to yell and calm down the boneheads. Now that that was done, I beat Hoenn for the final gym badge. On the way to the Pokemon League, I stopped to catch Corsola and Luvdisc with the Super Rod in Evergrande City, then went to Victory Road to catch Hariyama, evolve Lairon into Aggron, fight Wally, and then catch Marwell and Whiscash through fishing. I got lost in Victory Road for a while, then finally made my way out and reached the Pokemon League. I was still way too underleveled, so I did some more grinding on my team before taking on the Pokemon League and beating the game. The Elite Four was no problem, but Wallace posed some problems because I only had 2 super effective moves, and you don't get to be champion of the Pokemon League without knowing how to spam full restores. In the end, I won. The credits roll with 104 Pokemon in the Pokedex, meaning we still have about half the Pokedex to go. Now that we're champion, all we need to do is collect the last few Pokemon and grind the evolutions. I went back to Granite Cave and got Nosepass because you can only get it through Rock Smash in Granite Cave for some reason. I decided that now would be the perfect time to knock out one of the most annoying Pokemon in the game, Feebas. I was dreading having to do Feebas because there's only like 6 tiles that can even spawn a Feebas and it changes every day, but luckily I took so damn long from starting the game up to this point that someone made a calculator using your trainer ID and the trendy phrase in Dewford to calculate where the tiles are. Using this, I was able to catch Feebas pretty quickly and I picked up a few until I got one with a favorable nature for later. I head over to the abandoned ship and get a Waterstone, the scanner, and fish for Tentacruel. I then give the scanner to Captain Stern in exchange for one of 2 items. We need both to get the different evolutions of Clamperl, but we only get 1 per save, which means we need to get the other in either Ruby or Sapphire. I spoke with Watson in Mauville to get the key to New Mauville, then made a pit stop on Route 117 to fish up a Corphish with the Super Rod before heading off to New Mauville. In here, I solved some simple puzzles and caught Magnemite, Voltorb, grabbed the Thunderstone, and stepped on the switch to deal with the generator here. I then started looking for a Magneton, another 1% encounter, but given my luck and that it only needs to be level 30 to evolve, I ended up stopping and moving on. I went to Fiery Path to get a Firestone that's supposed to be here, but I forgot I already got it way back after the 4th gym. Whoops. Going north of Rustboro to Route 115, I surfed to a little patch of grass to catch Swallow and Jigglypuff, except I accidentally pressed run, so I had to find another. In Meteor Falls, I made my way to the back of the cave to catch Bagon, but then I realized an annoying little error that I made. So to get the Reggies, you need Dig, which is a TM move. Problem is, TMs are a one-time use only, and because I used the Dig TM earlier, then taught something else over that move, I am now locked out of the Reggies. There is a move reminder in Full Arbor, but he doesn't reteach TM moves, so I basically just fucked myself. I went to the Fossil Maniac house and go through his tunnel for the Claw Fossil, then revived it for Anorus. I went back to the Safari Zone to use the Super Rod for Seeking, then fished again in Lilycove for Staryu. On Route 124, I went underwater to pick up some shards, then went to Shoal Cave as it was now low tide. Here, I caught a Spheal and Snorunt. I traded the shards I collected for a Water and Leaf Stone, then in Moss Deep, I got the Beldum from Steven's house. I just want to take a moment and talk about this one. Like, Steven just leaves his home, leaves us a Pokemon, and we're just expected to go into his house and take it? On the table is a letter he wrote, but he didn't send it out to us. He quite literally just left and relied on us deciding, hey, let's go visit Steven on the other side of the damn country. At least put the letter in the mail or something. Then again, there doesn't seem to be a postal service in Hoenn because we had to be the postman for the letter addressed to Steven. I don't know, man. This is silly. I then finally made my way to Pacifidlog, where most importantly we had the best character interaction ever with this guy. Then I fished just west on Route 132 for Horsey. After this, however, I needed to spend a moment playing a different game, so I booted up Pokemon Ruby. Pokemon Ruby has a couple of things we need. We've also reached a point in Emerald where the only Pokemon we have left to catch are legendaries, and we need to trade over Dig to get that. Conveniently, we need to play Ruby up to literally the moment we get Dig, so I figured I'd do it all now. I picked Mudkip again as my starter as it's easier to solo with, plus I could just delete my save and get the other starters after. Thinking back, it might not have been the smart choice, but oh well. I speedran my way all through the game, and within an hour 20 or so, I got Dig. On Route 114, I caught Nuzleaf and Zangoose, on Route 117, I caught Roselia, and on Route 102, after nearly an hour of looking, I caught Surskit. I traded them all over to Emerald, and then went to do another stupid and dumb thing in this game. Horsea evolves into Seadra at level 32, then Kingdra by trading while it holds a Dragon Scale. Thing is, Dragon Scale can only be obtained as a held item. Because of this, I had to keep fishing up Horsea, use Seaf, and hope that it was holding the scale. Eventually I moved over to Meteor Falls to do it instead, as Bagon was easier to find. Eventually I got the item, and now all I had left before the grind was the legendaries. I go down and dig in front of this wall, and then I swap Relicanth to the front and Wailord to the back. Except they reversed the order in Emerald for some reason, and Wailord needs to be in front and Relicanth is in the back. I went to the desert on Route 111 and found this guy. I had a bit planned out for this series where every game I would waste a Master Ball in unique and stupid ways, but after the 10 hours I spent in Gen 2 with Roamers, I have decided that I'd rather just use the Master Ball and the Roamers to minimize the pain. I then solved the puzzle and caught Regirock on my first Ultra Ball. I went to Route 105 and solved the puzzle for Regice, then went to Route 120 and did the same for Registeel. Over at the Weather Institute, I got a report of severe rain on Route 127. I went there and dived down to the new spot and entered the Marine Cave. I didn't realize the fight would begin the moment I stepped on this tile instead of having to press A, so I only had one shot at this guy. Luckily, I caught Kyogre on my 5th ball. Groudon can be found in a similar way, with me being told of a big drought on Route 116. I go there and enter the new cave and find Groudon. Both of these Pokemon have Rest, so they can be a massive pain in the ass to catch. With that done, I decided to handle the Stone evolutions. I evolved Lombre into Ludicolo with a Water Stone, Gloom into Blossom with a Sunstone, Nuzleaf into Shiftry with a Leaf Stone, Vulpix into Ninetales with a Fire Stone, and Skitty into Delcatty with a Moonstone. I caught a higher level of Oddish on Route 119, then did some grinding against Gabby and Tai to evolve it into another Gloom. I then evolved it into a Vileplume with a Leaf Stone, as well as Staryu into Starmie with a Water Stone, and Pikachu into Raichu with a Thunderstone. There is one other Stone evolution in the game, evolving Jigglypuff into Wigglytuff, however there's only one Moonstone in the entire game, so we'll need to trade it over from another game later. Now it's time for my Pokemon to get laid, except not quite because I went to the Desert Underpass first to catch a Ditto. Ditto isn't a part of the Regional Dex, however, so we won't add it to this counter. Using the Ditto, I could breed at the daycare to get a few Pokemon. I used this to breed a Jigglypuff for Igglybuff and Raichu for Pichu. The final one is Marill into Azurill, and for this one they made it so the parent has to hold a sea incense in order for the egg to be an Azurill. It doesn't complicate the process too much, but it's just kinda weird to me. I also hatched the Wynaut egg we got way back in Lava Ridge. Now it's time for the level grind we all know and dread. I decided to start off grinding some particularly low level evolutions on Gabby and Tai because I felt it wasn't worth doing a full Elite Four run on Pokemon that would evolve halfway through. I evolved Silcoon into Beautyfly at level 10, Cascoon into Dustox at level 10, Abra into Kadabra at level 16, Nincada into Ninjask at level 20, as well as the Shedinjas for having an extra slot open on the team, and Marill into Azumarill at level 18. We have a lot of Pokemon that evolve through level up, and doing that would take forever. I needed to figure out the most optimal way to level them all up, and with a little bit of thought, I figured it out. I needed to beat Pokemon Sapphire anyway to get Latias, so what if I did the level grinding there? Not only is my team much better equipped for Steven compared to Wallace, but I can also get an experience multiplier on all my Pokemon due to them being traded. With this, I booted up Sapphire and did a quick little speedrun up to Winona, where I realized I could trade over my main team and have an even easier time sweeping the game, as I now had enough badges for them to obey. From here, I played all the way up to the Pokemon League, went through Sea Marvel to get both the Scanner and Ice Beam to optimize my Elite Four runs even more, traded the Scanner for the Deep Sea Scale, then did my first run through the Pokemon League to unlock Latias. I caught Lunatone in Meteor Falls, then, well, okay, got a Lunatone. What the shit? What the fuck is this? I went to Route 117 to finally get Volbeat, then went to Mount Pyre for Meditite and Victory Road for Medicham. Now it was time for our good friend Latios to show up. Latios and Latios are roaming legendaries, meaning they change routes every time you change area. Back in Generation 2, it took me hours to finally get them to show up, but here it didn't take nearly as long. I caught Latios, then hopped over to Pokemon Emerald to put all the Pokemon that needed evolving together into PC, and then I began trading. I traded over 6 Pokemon, then every time they had fully evolved, I would trade them over for a new batch. For Pokemon that needed to evolve twice, I just traded them over once they evolved, then traded them back to finish the grind. Using the EXP share, Elite 4, and trade bonus on EXP, I was flying through levels on my Pokemon. I evolved Ralton to Curly at level 20 and then into Gardevoir at level 30, Slackoth to Vigoroth at level 18 and into Slacking at level 36, Numel into Camerupt at level 33, Machop into Machoke at level 28, Magnemite into Magneton at level 30, Gulpin into Swalot at level 26, Doduo into Dodrio at level 31, who I already caught but I forgot that I did, Machoke into Machamp through trading it, Grimer into Muk at level 38, Coughing into Wheezing at level 40, Slugma into Magcargo at level 38, Trapinch into Vibrava at level 35, Vibrava into Flygon at level 45, Spoink into Grumpig at level 32, Sandshrew into Sandslash at level 22, Cacnea into Cacturne at level 32, Duskull into Dusclops at level 37, Phanpy into Donphan at level 25, Corphish into Crawdon at level 30, Anorus into Armaldo at level 40, Lilip into Cradily at level 40, Rhyhorn into Rhydon at level 42, Chinchou into Lantern at level 27, Snorunt into Glalie at level 42, Horsey into Seadra at level 32, Spheal into Celio at level 32, Bagon to Shelgon at level 30, Beldum to Metang at level 20, Celio to Walrein at level 44, then I took a little break to scavenge the land for rare candies for Metang and Shelgon. Because they level up so slowly and they have to be at such a high level to evolve, I figured it'd be faster to use the rare candies I could find to give them the final levels. I gathered 13 rare candies in all, then used them once the 2 reached high enough levels to evolve Shelgon into Salamence at level 50 and Metang into Metagross at level 45. I traded them over, evolving Kadabra into Alakazam, Graveler into Golem, Clamperl to Huntail by holding the Deep Sea Tooth, then another Clamperl to Corvus by holding the Deep Sea Scale, and Seadra to Kingdra by holding the Dragon Scale at the same time. With that, I had finished all the grinding in Sapphire. I got the other starters at Ruby and traded them over to Emerald, and now it was time to finish this grind. I evolved Trico into Grovyle at level 16, then into Sceptile at level 36, Torchic to Kabuskin at level 16, and then into Blaziken at level 36, Surskit to Masquerain at level 22, and Jigglypuff to Wigglytuff with the Moonstone. Now, there was one evolution left, but this one is a bit of a pain, and I only made it harder on myself because I'm an idiot. To evolve Feebas into Milotic, you have to max out its beauty stat, then level it up. To max out the beauty stat, you need to feed it Pokeblocks, which are made with the Berry Blender in the Contest Hall in Lilycove. By putting in berries and playing a little minigame, you get a Pokeblock depending on the berries put in and how well you did. I went to the Berry Master's house on Route 123 to get a Pumptree Berry from his wife, then mixed that and Chesto Berries in the Berry Blender, getting as many blue Pokeblocks as I could, then giving it to Feebas, and it wasn't enough. I go back to the Berry Master and save and reload to get a Cornberry from him, then do the same with Kira and Zootopolis, try again, and still not enough. I forgot to plan ahead of time with the berries, and now I can't get enough good Pokeblocks to evolve Feebas. That is, if I didn't have another game. I got the corn and palm tree berries in Sapphire as well and traded them over, and now I can finally get enough good Pokeblocks to max my beauty stat, and I can evolve Feebas to Milotic. With that, we only had one Pokemon left, and it's a big one. If you know me, I like to leave the final Pokemon to be a big one, with Mewtwo in yellow and Celebi in crystal. Here, the final Pokemon can be found at the top of Sky Pillar. Sky Pillar became a gauntlet after our first visit, requiring precise bike movement to get through, but at the top is the final Pokemon, Rayquaza. And with that, the Regional Pokedex is complete. We have won. I went back to Professor Birch to see if he had anything to say, and he told me to take one of the 3 Johto starters as thanks for my incredible work. So that's another to the National Dex counter. With this, we now have all the Pokemon needed for this game to consider the Pokedex complete. But we're still missing the 2 Mythicals, Jirachi and Deoxys. Jirachi has a pretty simple way of getting it. By connecting the Coliseum bonus disc with Ruby or Sapphire, you can transfer a Jirachi to your save for that game. I did that and traded over to Emerald, but Deoxys was going to need a little more work. Deoxys needed an event to get, where you got a distribution item and went to Burst Island. There are glitches to just get a Deoxys in-game, but I wanted to actually go and catch it on Burst Island. There are glitches to do that as well, but honestly, I don't trust myself to do super complex glitches without fucking something up, so I just resorted to cheating. I got the item in the game no problem with a cheat code, however, there's a separate flag in the game that needs to be active to do the event, and I didn't have the flag. After a ton of trial and error, I was able to do some save file editing in PK Hex to activate the event flags. With this, I was able to trigger an event in the harbor. Problem is, I accidentally just did the one for Mew. After a bit more trial and error, I finally got myself onto Burst Island. Here, I could catch Deoxys and officially complete the Pokedex. Speaking with the game's director gives me the diploma, and with that, we have finished the Pokedex in 64 hours and 43 minutes. I fought Steven and the Elite Four again for fun, but we were finally done. Overall, this Pokedex is way easier than Crystal, and the total hours really show that. The roamers weren't as bad, there were no time-based catches to worry about, leveling was less of a pain with the new strat I used, and overall, Emerald is just better, so I enjoyed it more. When I came to the end of the previous two Pokedexes, it felt a little bittersweet. While yes, I did finally complete the Pokedex, I also now had no reason to go back to those games, and may potentially never replay them again. That's not a feeling I have with this Pokedex though. I did complete the task, but it isn't the end of my journey with this game, far from it. Unlike the Gen 2 Pokedex, there is more to the Pokedex than just the regional dex. We're missing about 180 Pokemon still, and those Pokemon are not going to be easy to obtain. In fact, the Gen 3 National Dex is often considered the single hardest Pokedex to complete. I won't be tackling that monstrous challenge just yet, however. Instead, we'll be taking a little nostalgia trip. Red and Blue got some remakes in this generation, so why don't we do those and compare them to the originals.